Hello, my name is Michael Gratzke, and I'm a professor of comparative literature. Comparative literature is the study of literature in more than one language. In my case, that is German, Finnish, and English, which is a bit of an odd combination, but there are good biographical reasons for that. Literature isn't about national literature in one standard literary language. There's indigenous multilingualism, even in the United Kingdom, to start with, and there's migration, and in any case, people read in more than one language, people read translations, they watch films and TV programs with subtitles. The aim of studying literature comparatively can vary greatly. Sometimes it is about studying influences and dissemination of concepts, ideas, styles, and topics. And sometimes it is about highlighting different perspectives. And sometimes, obviously, it can be a bit of both. There is a philosophical concept called traveling concepts, coined by the Dutch academic Mieke Baal. She describes how very basic concepts such as metaphor or myth travel between academic disciplines and in this journey evolve. Something similar can be said about ideas which travel between languages and literatures. They evolve, they change, and they reshape the original when they reach their starting point again. The traveling concept, which I have studied most in my academic career, is love. We can probably agree that relationships are the most fundamental way in which people engage with each other and with the world. I claim that the desire or even need to interact with something or someone is universal. What is far less clear is what people mean when they talk about love. Throughout history and across the globe, there's an immense richness of discourses on art and literature concerned with love. Equally, there are many different social practices which organize love and relationships. There are certainly clusters and patterns, but I argue there is no single shared understanding of what love is. As much as our behavior may be influenced by our physiology and psychology, traceable to prehistory and the human condition, the social practices organizing love and the cultural expression of love show great variety. For a freeborn man in ancient Greece, the deepest human connection, sexually charged or not, would have been with other men. In the 18th century, French and Italian books warned men against marrying the woman they love. The idea that romantic love and marriage should coincide has been around for a very long time, but in the West, it only started to get traction in the 19th century. By the end of the 20th century, divorce rates in the industrialized countries had risen so sharply, and that's partly because more women could afford economic independence, that commentators announced the death of the institution of marriage, and they predicted a new era of democratic, egalitarian, freely entered and freely left relationships in the way they saw practice in queer communities. And if you fast forward into the 21st century, you will find yourself in heated debates between religious conservatives and LGBTQ plus people and their allies over equal marriage. The Pope's recent endorsement of civil unions for gay and lesbian people is a late concession in these cultural wars. So marriage in itself is a traveling concept which has meant, at the beginning, economic exchange between families facilitated by the legal union of a man and a woman. It has later meant the exclusive location of romantic and family love, as well as procreation. And as an aside, many of you in the audience today, you will be too young to remember the social stigma of being born out of wedlock or having divorced parents. I'm old enough. The stigmatization of teenage parents continues in this country to this day. Marriage in the 1990s was a dead horse, not worth flogging. And now it's again cherished as the legal and social relationship which best suits the love between two non-related people of any gender. But why is it two and not more? Why is being in a committed relationship better than being single and maybe promiscuous? Why is it so shocking to find that there are people who identify as asexual or aromantic? Why do people frown when they hear that someone just isn't prepared to prioritize a love relationship over the friendships they have in their life? One of the risks you run as a love researcher is that people believe you want to sell them the concept of love. And that's not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to learn about is why so many people are preoccupied with notions of love, and in particular, romantic love. The motto of my research is, love is what people say it is, and not what experts say what it ought to be. This is the starting point for what is called an inductive research process. It starts with observations, and it leads to the understanding of patterns, of norms, of deviation, and the drift which leads gradually to social change. In my research, I just don't read fancy books all the time. I also work on and with amateur writers and people who have never written creatively before. For example, I've worked with spoken word poets, I have worked with a group of queer young people, and I've worked with people who have dementia and their partners. The first thing I can tell you about love is that being a good, recognized, professional writer does not give you better insight into matters of the heart. It just means that you've been given a bigger platform. The other thing I can tell you so far about romantic love is that love is no single emotion. Although it is enmeshed in complex ways with many emotions, some of which we commonly call love. Love is what the French philosopher Michel Foucault called a dispositif, or an apparatus. And I'm going to give you a definition. A dispositif is constituted by the dynamic and productive interplay of discourses, practices, and the material conditions for their existence. The love dispositif hence encompasses love norms, love institutions, love theory, all speech acts and practices generated by and in the name of love, as well as the material conditions, such as the gendered division of reproductive labor, and even the oxytocin levels in people who experience love. And as a final point, why are literature and creative writing good places to research love and relationships? Literary studies have a very good understanding how narration works, how stories are constructed, told, and understood. As human beings, we create stories all the time, prominently about our own lives. Storytelling is a way of making sense of something which is over-complex by reducing complexity, by making it narratable. On the most fundamental level, narrative is the base category of cognitive self-experience, as it furnishes the self with a sense of continuous identity. However, dysnarrativia and hypernarrativia are common phenomena which are caused by events and experiences which disrupt the narratability of life. They push the self-sense of continuous identity to a breaking point. So your storytelling about love is always pulled in two directions. On the one hand, there are extremely powerful traditional narratives or plots which try to steer your love story into a recognizable pattern, such as unrequited love, or happily ever after, or the idea that you have to hate your ex. There are many more. On the other hand, your experiences with love and relationship may be so disturbing to your sense of selfhood that you find yourself incapable of expressing them, or you find yourself not being able to focus on a salient point. So one is dysnarratavia, you can't explain it, you can't narrate it, and the other one is hypernarratavia, you explain too much and you lose the plot. So this dynamic toing and froing between patterns and disruptions, that is what it makes it so interesting to hear about your love stories. Thank you very much.